Hey guys, welcome to another episode of LJ's Garage. And if you haven't been paying attention to recent news, the biggest thing this week is the release of the new Corvette. It is stunning, fantastic, beautiful, everything in between. And I just want to take a moment to talk about this awesome new Corvette. First off, if you work for the company, just know that I want the first one, so send one my way. Otherwise, put me on the list and I'll wait, but I definitely want one of these new Corvettes. It goes without saying that the Corvette is my favorite American car. Ever, hands down, the best. I know that not everyone loves the new Corvette. There's even been people calling it the Corventador, which I don't know why that's a bad thing. I think the Aventador is an awesome car as well and equally stunning. And so why would you not want to use that as inspiration for another mid-engine cool car? For those of you that are surprised that the Corvette decided to go mid-engine, I'm not quite sure why. It's always been in Corvette's future to end up as a mid-engine car. It's just taken some time, and I'm glad that they took the time to wait because what they've done prior to this one has been fantastic. They said that this car is more than a next generation, it's next level, and that's the truth. As always, I do love a good meme, so here's a couple. Everyone knows that this is pretty similar to the NSX, so I like this meme right here. And then obviously there's the taillights. That's a running joke that's never gonna get old, but I'll explain that in a little bit. The engineers have labeled this car as not your everyday car, but a car that you wanna take every day. That's always been what the Corvette's about. It's look at this awesome car, but I'm gonna drive it and get on it and treat it like a regular old car because at the end of the day, it's meant to be driven. I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited that they've got LED lights in the engine bay and everything. So now you're able to like walk past these Corvettes and see the glorious LT2 and oh man, it's gonna be so nice. And that's the best engine to look at. That's all, I don't know. I don't have any words to describe it, I'm just excited. That magnificent LT2 is a 6.2 liter V8 that makes 495 horsepower and 470 foot-pounds of torque. That's for the base model. And if that doesn't impress you enough, it does 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. And recently I was on Instagram and I saw someone take it out and they got about 2.8 seconds. So I'm still happy with that. I don't really know what other base model car can give you that kind of performance. You know, we're talking Lamborghini and Ferrari territory here. Unfortunately, the one trade-off is that we're hearing that there's gonna be no manual option. It shouldn't come as a surprise to many people because the way the automotive industry is moving, it's sports cars are dual clutch, everything else is gonna be an automatic. So this one's got an 8-speed dual clutch transmission, which does a great job. It's moving the car pretty well to be getting that 2.8 second 0 to 60. And not only that, I was reading recently and it says that they're trying to make it a combination between a manual and an automatic. So there's some cool things like if you hold the paddle shifters, both the paddle shifters, it'll actually go into neutral. So then you can rev and do everything, it'll roll back. You can kind of simulate that feeling of having a manual, but really, I don't know why you would do that other than to enjoy the beautiful sound of that awesome V8. Now, I'm not too sold on the interior. I can respect it for what it is, but it's not the most practical layout to me. I don't really like the buttons on the center console, but you know, they're trying to go for that whole fighter jet layout, but I don't necessarily want to drive a fighter jet every day or on the weekends. I mean, I guess it's kind of cool to drive it on the weekends, but a fighter jet's not something that I aspire to have in my garage. Something else I've heard a lot of excitement about is that front lift system. I was talking to some of my car guys and someone was asking what happens if that front lift system, so you know, whenever you're getting to a bump or curb or your driveway, the car can actually like remember these certain points and it'll raise the front end up a little bit so you don't scrape. Awesome feature, something that a lot of high-end cars have. And one of my buddies was saying, what happens if that fails and you just think that your car is going to lift and it doesn't and you end up just like tearing up the front end? Will Chevy take care of you on that? Thank you, Brian, for that good question. My buddy Dustin was asking and he said, how is it that the Corvette can maintain this price point offering such great technology, such great performance? So I had to do some digging, but I think I finally came up with an answer. The first thing that Chevy does to save money, or Corvette does, is they're using versions of the LS motor that have been around for a long time. So that LT1, LT2, they're just continuously tweaking, tuning, making performance modifications to an already standard engine in the Chevy lineup. So that's already keeping costs down versus Ferrari, Lamborghini, and the rest of them, you know, hand making these motors and, you know, taking time to only produce a couple thousand cars for the year, going through that whole process, whereas Chevy can just make these cars on an assembly line and crank them out, make some tunes, make some tweaks, but it's at the end of the day, it's still the same LS motors that we all have come to know and love. Another point is that the interior of these Corvettes have always been pretty decent, but a lot of those materials you can find in Malibus, you can find in Impalas, you can find in the Camaros. So even the Escalade they're pulling, parts from. So the materials are there and they're available in GM's parts bin. So that makes things pretty convenient as well for Corvette. This point is also something that I want to bring up, is that at the end of the day, it used to be that a Corvette ended up becoming, like, especially around the C5 generation, it became a more expensive Camaro. And I was not a fan of that, because I felt like the Camaro was in its own, bracket, and then the Corvette was in its own bracket. But somehow the lines started to get blurred. You walk into a Camaro and it's got the same media setup and buttons that you find in the Corvette. And I get that you have to reuse parts to keep costs down, which is okay. I completely get it. But now we have issues with people making fun of the taillights because they look like the Camaro taillights. And they, maybe GM found a way to make that work. But regardless, that's another way they kept costs down, by reusing stuff from the Camaro parts bin or making those vehicles more closely cross-compatible than, completely creating a new platform. But this new Corvette, they've done that. They've separated it from the Camaro, and I'm glad. It's about time. Can't nobody tell me nothing. That leads me to my next point, in that the Camaro and the Mustang, those two should be battling it out. That's hands down, that's where the competition should be. But then when you have things like the ZL1 Camaro, well, it gets a little bit sketchy, because now you have a Camaro that's getting into Corvette territory as far as pricing and performance. And then what is the Camaro supposed to do? What is the Corvette supposed to do? So those two tend to kind of conflict. And then you've got Ford over here with the Mustang, and they're all across the range. You've got the GT350s, you've got the GT500s, all sorts of things going on, whereas that's starting to go up against the Corvette. But now you have the Mustang fighting against the Corvette and the Camaro. It gets a little messy, but I'm glad that now it's the clear American car that's fighting the supercars is the Corvette. A Corvette's going after those GTRs, it's going after the Ferraris, it's going after the Lamborghinis. It's the American car that is fighting those supercars coming in from across the sea. I always felt as though they could take the Cadillac CTS-V, keep that, get rid of the Camaro, and just have the Corvette be cool, or water down the Camaro a little bit, knock it down a little bit in the price point, and have it be just a basic car, and then leave the Corvette the way it is. But I get that the Corvette has no back seats, and that's why it's cool to have the Camaro, so there's that. There's all sorts of different factors that go into it, but I feel like now we're properly distinguishing the two vehicles. One of the guys on the Corvette forums, he was saying now that the new C8 is out, it's making his C5 look ancient, and it really does. I never really thought of it until he mentioned that, but now the C5 looks like a collector's car. The C6 is starting to look like it's aging terribly, even though the C7 kind of did that already, but the C6 I feel like is in that weird category of being left behind, and it doesn't look as cool as it used to, and it's just the one that's going to get left behind. So I'm thinking those will drop pretty good, and we'll be able to get some good deals on used C6s as well as used C7s, but not quite, because the C7 is also going to be what I'm thinking the last true Corvette for those purists out there that want that front engine, big V8, rear wheel drive, manual transmission, all of those cool things. I feel like that's going to be where this gets left off. So we'll see what happens there. During the release of the C8, they mentioned that they kind of hit a wall with the C7. That was the most perfect Corvette that they could ever make using the prior platform and setup. I think they're right, because now we get the benefits of a mid-engine car, which for those of you that haven't driven a mid-engine car, the performance the track performance is amazing. And now with the added big V8, now we're talking about straight line performance. So you're getting the best of every world, and under $60,000 starting price. I don't know what else you could name that beats that. Even the new Supra, which I've been in love with since the day I saw it. I'm thinking for that horsepower difference and the fact that you're getting a mid-engine supercar fighter, I think the Corvette's kind of hard to beat. They've also found a way to maintain the removable roof, so that's a big plus for me. And right now, since no longer owning a Corvette, that's one of the biggest things that I miss. The motorcycle takes care of that, but I do really miss having a car with a removable roof. I hate convertibles, but I like removable roofs. The last thing that I want to talk about, and it's kind of a downer topic, but it's something that I'm curious about, is how they're going to maintain the typical maintenance cost of a Corvette, because a Corvette's something that you can work on in your garage prior generations. So now that it's mid-engine, how is that going to affect us consumers and people that like to tinker and take care of their cars? Are we going to still be able to do that? Or are we talking about pulling off all the bumpers and fenders to get to, you know, all the stuff that we need to work on if that happens, you know? Or let's say you're out of warranty and you need to start working on this stuff. Is that going to be possible? Or is the C8 going to be one of those cars that is great to own under warranty, but the minute it's out of warranty, they're going to start to tank and depreciate and lose their value because nobody wants to take care of them. No one wants to be able to maintain them, or no one's able to maintain them in their garage anymore. I'm worried about that. But I know that there was the Fiero and the MR2s, and those cars were also the same setup similarly. And maintenance costs on those weren't too bad and they're affordable, but we're talking about an LT2 with, you know, all this future technology and all these cool bells and whistles, stuff that a lot of us haven't ever worked on and haven't had the chance to spend any time with. So that's something for you guys to think about. I'm curious. Let me know what you guys think down below. But other than that, thank you guys for checking out yet another video in LJ's Garage. Be sure to drop some comments down below and let me know what you guys think about the C8 Corvette.